Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for another episode of the Ghost Furnace. I am Bond and I'm here with my cohort Nick Pennsylvania. How you doing, bud?
I am getting ready. I'm going to be away all next week out in the Pocono Mountains for work,
Yeah,
but I'll be enjoying myself because, again, there's few things I like than time spent alone in a hotel room. So,
right. No, yeah, and there are worse places to be hauled up in than the
yeah, no,
Poconos.
honestly, I'll be pretty busy the whole time, but I am looking, I have a new book on Audible I'm hoping to get knee deep into on my way out there and
Nice.
then finish it up on the way back out. And of course, hitting some antique stores, some thrift
Oh, you
stores
have
on the way
to.
back. Yeah, and going to
Are
enjoy
you,
myself.
do you come back six or
Do
how
I
do you,
go? Oh, do I come back Route 6? No, I don't. That's a good idea, though. No, there's some different traditions that some of my coworkers and I have created over the
mm,
years of, going out there. And so we stop in the Bloomsburg area
oh,
and get
okay.
wings on the way back. So it takes me
That's
away
that,
from six a
yeah,
bit.
that's understandable. That's nice to have a little tradition like that with coworkers and
Yeah.
everything.
It's
So,
that and going to the Swiftwater Diner for those people out
ooh.
Northeast PA. It's a choice diner, I will say, and there are some trains shunting a few blocks away. If you hear that, that's what's happening. Anyway, it is a good diner with the exception of there are two types of split pea soup in this world. There is a ham hock
Yes.
variety,
Hmm.
right, which is more of a brothy soup like thing. And
Yeah.
then there is people that puree peas and then heat it up and call it soup, and that is terrible. And
Oh,
that is the only slight against the Swiftwater Diner. I will sing its praises though, because I learned many years ago through reading William Lee's Heat Moon's Blue Highways that you can judge the quality of the food in a diner by the number of calendars on its walls. And there are,
oh, okay.
last
I like
time I was
that.
there,
I like
three
that.
calendars, which is pretty good, pretty good.
That's decent.
Yeah.
Okay. No,
So
I
the more calendars on the wall, the better. And I'm going to tell you, it's something of an axiom I found.
no, I like that. I think that there are some fun markers out there like that you see and you're like, you know what? I'm not sure what the correlation is here, but
Right.
it seems to line up with something.
Yeah, it's like what we said. We don't know the mechanics of these things, but we do.
We don't know why this
So,
works, but
right. So you have a Ghost Light for us.
yeah,
What's up?
yeah. So as we've said, we want to have people reaching out to us with questions and things to look into and whatnot. And we've had some really great responses from folks, and I have like a backlog now of things that I'm looking into, some of which are turning into full length episodes, not just like little questions here and there. But so the one I wanted to bring to everyone tonight, one of my friends asked about something that we've talked about a few times, kind of in passing, but never in earnest. And that thing is something that is local to us here, and that is the Harmonist Cemetery in Harmony, Pennsylvania, which is right down the road from us. And it's an area we spend a lot of time in.
Yeah, I when we moved to Western Pennsylvania when I was a child, we lived in Harmony, and of course you
Mm-hmm.
met me and knew me when I was living in Harmony, and I even ran as for mayor at one
Mm-hmm.
point. Something
Right.
of a joke that got a little too serious, and then I promptly moved away down to the county seat. But yeah,
Yeah. So one of my friends was asking, they're like, how haunted is the Harmonist Cemetery? And whenever they asked that, I started thinking because it's one of those places. Before we get into any of the haunting stuff, I'll give you guys a little bit of the history on it. So, the Harbinists again are this kind of religious group. Some people call cult. Some people call them a society. They go by a few different terms,
right.
but they were around in the early 1800s here in Harmony, Pennsylvania. They, after a brief time, after establishing themselves here, moved out to Indiana and
Hmm.
established New Harmony, and they then came back and established Old Economy Village, which is
Right.
over in Beaver County.
About 20
Um,
miles down the road, give or take.
yeah, and really, it's a really interesting group of people, very zealotly religious.
Yeah, they were something of an eschatological group because they believed that the
Yeah.
second coming of Christ was imminent,
Was
and so
eminent. Yes.
yeah, and so they generally practiced celibacy.
Hmm.
They had immigrated over from the Baden-Württemberg area of what is now part of Germany, and their last kind of hurrah in population was when they took in a lot of Civil War orphans. But by
Yes.
that time, of course, they were pretty well established in
Hmm.
economy, which
Hmm.
was their third place.
Third
So,
kind of home.
right.
But so the cemetery that we're talking about with the first one here, it's right along Route 68 in Harmony, Pennsylvania. And it's one of those things when you notice it, you're just kind of like, what in the world is that?
Yeah.
Um,
There's only
so
one gravestone.
yeah, there's only one gravestone that's just kind of like sitting there on the side. It's not even like fully placed,
Right.
and even that isn't a tombstone in the traditional sense. It's more of a marker. What this place is it is a there's a stone wall and there's this big double door, swinging hinged stone door that is around the cemetery. And again, like you kind of mentioned, Nick, the thing that's strangest about the cemetery is there are, supposed to be almost 100 people buried there, these harmonists, but there are no gravestones or tombstones for marking the plots where these people are buried and
Right.
interred.
They were pretty strict in their feelings about, guarding against iconography and things like that, is
Yeah.
my understanding. And so the one tombstone that is there was
Hmm.
kind of begrudgingly accepted as a gift from the Mennonites. When
Yes.
the Harmonists moved out, the Mennonites moved in, and some of the names and some of the people
Hmm.
that we know and went to school with are actual direct descendants of those Mennonite families, including the guy, my friend that ran the newsstand
Hmm.
for many years.
Right. And yeah, when you look through it on Find a Grave, there are a lot of names that are still present in the area, which is just kind of cool. But that stone wall and the door are not original to the cemetery. They weren't built by the Harmonists. That was actually constructed in 1869, which is well after when this was used. So the different places have different numbers and everything for when it was active. The historical marker from the National Historic Registry of Places says that one says 1805 to 1815. If you look at Find a Grave that has all the deeds on it, the earliest I was able to find was 1807, and the latest was 1819. So it's in that general range of the early 1800s that it was active. And again, at that time it was just a bunch of people in the ground, no markers or anything. People just had to like know that it was there. So kind of like a weird, not to say weird, but an unusual way of doing a cemetery. And what I found listed a few places for the rationale was just simply that the harmonists believed that they would be recognized in heaven and no longer needed any recognition here on Earth, which again is just kind of non-traditional in that sense. It's been around for a long time and it has been unusual for a long time. So especially after they built the stone wall and the door. Now
Yeah, the door
again,
is remarkable because it weighs so much, and you can push it with two fingers, and
right.
that's like the big thing that people go to see, really.
Yeah, and the door looks like it's supposed to look like the two tablets of the Ten Commandments. So it's like these so it's round at the top and squared off the rest of the way, and it's on the hinge point is in the middle. Um so it's a really cool door. Like as far as like the craftsmanship and everything, it's really cool. Like it's worth going just to see that, honestly. But so again, it's been unusual. So, as we often talk about, this looks like the kind of place that should be haunted. It is a graveyard. It is unusual. It's in a location that doesn't seem average because it's right next to a highway. It's between a highway, a dentist office, and a brewery. So it's nestled in a very strange little spot. So you can understand why people would be like, "Oh, that place is definitely haunted." So I never personally have heard any stories of any like specific hauntings of the cemetery, though people often say like, "Oh yeah, of course it's haunted," but then kind of don't really follow up with any like particular even secondhand stories. The only time I ever had heard anything referenced to it was they used to do tours around Zelia and Harmony around Halloween, where it was like just like ghost tours, like ghost walks and everything. It was really cool. You'd actually ride on an old 1950s bus, which was kind of cool. I remember them talking about it, but again, it was more of just like an impasse, and like, oh, that's the haunted cemetery. So I started kind of digging in everything, and I can't find anything as far as like a firsthand story, even of someone saying that the cemetery is haunted. People refer to it as a haunted cemetery in tons of places, but I actually wasn't able to find anything that said like, oh, here's a story about the cemetery being haunted.
No, and I do know some haunting stories that have been told for years around
Hmm.
the area that involve the Harmonists, and I can
Yes.
share those, but honestly, nor have I. And I had friends that lived within a block or two of
Right.
the cemetery itself, and older friends that grew up in the 50s and 60s,
Hmm.
and never heard from them any such stories. So what I can tell you though is one of the people that's buried there, and if I'm not mistaken, the one tombstone dedicated
Hmm.
to the person was, well, let me just tell you the story as I know it. And
Yeah.
this may be woefully inaccurate historically, but it
Yeah.
is, but nonetheless, it
But
is the
that's not the
story
point here.
that
Yeah.
is told.
Yes, that's what we're looking for. Yeah.
So, as you may recall, we did a lot of recordings years ago in
Hmm.
a shop, and it was our friend's shop, and it was the leader of this
Hmm.
group. It was his house. So, if you want to call it this religious sect of
Hmm.
harmonists, the leader's home was where this music store was.
Yeah.
It's still there. It's now something else, and it was also the house in the late 19th century, early 20th century of a very notable community doctor. And he used it not only as his private residence, but also as his practice. So it's a very well known, even if it doesn't kind of stand in a place of like where there's a big spotlight on it, like
Right,
you would
right.
think, because it
Hmm.
was the leader's home. There are other buildings which kind of receive a bit more attention. But as you recall, we went down, I showed you the basement there a couple
Oh,
times, and then
yeah.
there was another basement.
Yeah.
And this basement, the floor was dirt, the walls were dirt.
Yeah.
The do you remember the joists?
I do remember. Yeah, they
They were just
are.
half trees.
Yeah, they were
Yeah.
just, yeah.
There was
Like,
still bark on parts of
I was
it.
gonna say they were still bark trees. They weren't even like milled. Yeah.
Right. And I want to say the building was built in 1802. I might be off by a
Hmm.
couple years max. So anyway, here's the story. Again, almost certainly factually inaccurate, but it is a story that I heard when I was in elementary school. I have heard it from multiple
Oh,
people.
okay.
I have heard it from multiple age groups.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So Father Rapp, who I've said before is mentioned in the fifth canto of Lord Byron's, the fifth Earl of Byron, his epic poem Don Juan, which I know it looks like Don Juan, but the rhyme scheme says Don Juan, and I'm
Right.
leaving it at that. He was English. Anyhow, Father Rapp had a son who apparently liked to get around a bit.
George Rapp. Yep.
Yeah, so the
Yep.
rumor is that there was something of a castration scene, not entirely voluntary,
Ooh.
what occurred in that basement. Now, yeah,
That's
this story has again it's gone around because I heard it, and I'm only now recalling I heard it from one of the ladies over at the Historic Society
yeah.
many years ago.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so there is that, and so that's a terrible story if it has any. Well, it's just a terrible
Validity.
story
Yeah.
because even if somebody wrote it, somebody had to write that.
Right.
But, but
Someone,
what's up
someone
with
had to
their
come up with
mind?
it. Yeah.
Right, they're just dirty people. But the ghost story to it is
Hmm.
that sometimes you can hear somebody trying to fight back, and you can
Yeah.
hear pain, and you can hear things in kind of an older German. Now, I was in that building by
Yeah.
myself quite frequently late
Right.
at night. Never
Heard
got any of
anything.
that.
Yeah.
But here's another thing. Before the people we knew
Mm-hmm.
bought the shop, it was it was the headquarters for the Visiting Nurses Association.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
it was a group
yeah.
of, mostly women, and they would go and they would stay with elderly people who still home, providing them with assistance so that they could,
Mm-hmm.
remain in their home and whatnot. And one of the lesson rooms upstairs, what was my lesson room ultimately,
Mm-hmm.
had been sealed off many years ago. It was one of the
Oh.
children's bedrooms. And when that child died, they just closed it off.
Oh, jeez.
So it was only, I think it was opened either right before the Visiting Nurses Association
Uh-huh.
departed there, or when it became the music shop, the second
Yeah.
location of the music shop. I'm not entirely sure, but one of those interesting little factoids I like to point out is that both Napoleon Bonaparte and Abraham Lincoln died before the invention of
Mm-hmm.
doorknobs.
It's
And
true. Yeah,
some of
it's
the
true.
it's really weird to think about. So when people always ask me, well, what did they use? Well, they had latch systems, and
Mm-hmm.
so in the in some of the other rooms in that building, you might recall some of the closet doors do not have doorknobs. They have these old latch systems. The door to go to the attic had this old latch system. So these are some significantly older doors at that.
Right,
So
because they have,
yeah,
yeah.
it kind of was spooky. I wasn't really a big fan of being there,
That
but
basement wasn't great.
basement was not great.
It was
But
not great. I remember we were thinking about, I don't know if we were gonna do photos down there
we were,
or do a video or something. And I remember like you moving the thing that covered this like the second part of the basement. I
yes,
remember us all looking in and just being like, nah,
that's a hard no.
that's it. Yeah, you can seal that back off. Like whatever you need to do. Like it was just
I'll go
like
upstairs. I'll wait for
yeah,
you.
it's just like yeah, like four grown adults just being like, nah, that's fine. You
Well,
can
so yeah,
it's good to do anything else.
I was
But
never crazy about being there real late at night. I never had
yeah,
anything weird happen. And part of it's because it's right in the town square, and
right,
there's windows everywhere, so there's a lot of light and everything, and you can see
right,
outside. So it's not as spooky as if it were more separated from the
right.
other
Yeah, the place
properties.
never felt like odd or off or
No, it just
anything,
felt
but just
old.
old. Yeah, exactly.
But it
But
is the
like
focal point of the only
right,
real ghost story I know that involves the harmonist in
the
Harmony.
harmonists, right, exactly. Well, and that's why it's interesting because again, the you look at the Harmonist cemetery and you're like, oh, that's definitely haunted.
Of
And then you would then
course.
then you would look at the house and you'd go, oh, that looks nice. Like because it does. It looks like just looks like a nice older house. It's now again, both of these things are well kept and maintained and everything. You would think that now I'm sure there are stories about people seeing the door like open and close on its own in the cemetery. But like you mentioned when we first started, Nick, because of how the door is balanced,
Yes.
it takes like like a stiff breeze could probably open that in the right
I've seen
conditions.
it
Oh,
get
see, there we go. Okay. Yeah.
I've seen it happen. I
Hmm.
remember going down to there's a it's a big pond. It's almost a lake.
Hmm.
Walking down there to go ice skating.
Okay. Yeah.
And because there was some friends that lived in a different neighborhood, and there was a pond in my backyard, and we always played hockey there in the
Right.
winter. But sometimes it'd be too crowded there, and so some other people go over to Swamp Poodle.
Hmm.
So went over that way, and I remember it was just I ended up getting there and realizing nobody was there. Let me back up. I was probably 12. I remember there was nobody at the pond, which was
Right.
the pond in my backyard. So I'm like,
Right.
well, I wonder if people are down Swamp Poodle. So I
Hmm.
walked, skates and stick and everything. I walked down there, and the wind was blowing so hard. And I got there and I noticed nobody was there, but I did see it, and maybe it was an illusion, but I did see it looked like
Yeah.
the door just kind of, with one big gust, just kind of a little.
Yeah.
But I could imagine
Well,
like a large dog could pretty easily open it and whatnot. I can't
right.
stress enough, 2 fingers
Yeah, it
is really all you
really,
need.
yeah, really. So, like, I'm sure there are stories out there. If you're someone who is local and has a story about the Harmonist Cemetery,
Yeah,
I'd love to hear it because we'd like to get it on record. Because again, we're not saying it's not haunted, but we're saying there's not like
I'll say it's
stories.
not
Yeah,
haunted. I
it's probably
I
not
can't
haunted.
imagine
Yeah,
living there so long and then
not
being the
having it
person I
right.
am and then not hearing something.
No
But
one say yeah.
one thing we
Um,
did do
hmm.
in Father Rapp's house, Brother Rapp, Father Rapp,
Yeah.
years ago. There was a couple years, like for my birthday, I'd be like, Brendan, I just bought this ridiculous suit. Can you take my
Oh,
photo?
dude, those
We're
are
gonna have
so
some
much
fun.
fun.
One
That's just
year
yeah,
in that house, in that building,
yeah.
we took a bunch
I
of
forgot we did
fake
that.
ghost photos,
We
and
did.
we had so much. So there's a bunch of photos of me, and I know I have some. I can send you
I
one. We could
know.
use it for this
Yeah,
thing or something. But we took a bunch of photos of me. I'm wearing a suit,
it's a great
and
suit. Looked
yeah,
great. It looked great. It really
we
did.
had fun like knocking a chair over lights and long exposures.
Yeah.
And we were trying to recreate some of the spirit
Hmm.
photographs of yesteryear. And yeah, we had a real
Which
good time.
I'd love to do more of those. If anyone out there is
I would
interested,
love to do that
yeah,
again.
we can get a bunch of people together and do some really fun stuff.
We should. We should
Yeah.
charter a bus and go
Go,
somewhere,
go all
go to
around
a
the East
couple
Coast. Yeah.
locations, and
Um,
we could start using those photos for YouTube.
yeah, that sounds great. But yeah, so if you're out there and you have a story about the Harmonist Cemetery, let us know. If you have any stories, let us know. And again, if you have any just questions or thoughts, things you'd like us to look into, if you have a place in your hometown or an adjacent town where you're like, I bet that place is haunted but can't find anything,
Right.
let us know. We want to look into it.
And we really
So
appreciate all the questions because we did a couple of these and we've gotten quite a number of questions afterwards. So thank you
yeah,
much.
yeah, seriously, it's really been a lot of fun, especially as we're doing our research for other larger episodes and trying to line up some more interviews and everything for everyone. So that's it for tonight. So if you want to reach out to us again, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, or just send us an email at the Ghost Furnace Podcast at gmail.com.